So in this video, I would like to explain how negation works in Russian. Negation in Russian is a grammatical construction that negates the meaning of a sentence by converting affirmative phrases to negative. And in Russian, there are many ways to do so. First, it's important to understand the types of negation in Russian, such as simple, strong, complete, and double negations. Additionally, all grammatical aspects can be applied to every negation, such as verbs, nouns, pronouns, numbers, adjectives, and adverbs, and I will give examples in every concept. However, when it comes down to, let's say, double negation, we'll have many negative pronouns, like nothing, nowhere, no one, nobody's, and so on, that will be affected in the 6 Russian cases. Even though it's a lot of information, in this video, I choose to not explain these highly advanced concepts because they're not as useful as the simple concepts that I'm going to cover. Plus, a lot of memorization is needed for them, so do not expect to see these ideas in this video. In case you're interested in the very advanced negations, I have a link in the description to a separate site that explains it. Anyhow, let's begin with simple negation. The first negation in Russian is simple negation, which makes the opposite of a word. It is based on the negative word нет, which in Russian is no, but the word itself changes under the fitting negation, which is similar to English, where no changes to not. In simple negation, the word нет will be не. And ne is the most used negative word in Russian, which works with every grammatical concept. By using it, we'll always place it before verbs, nouns, pronouns, numbers, adjectives, and adverbs. But let's not forget that Russian is expressive, allowing any word to be placed anywhere. To make learning simple, I'll always put ne before the common concept. Let's begin with verbs. In Russian, verbs are negated by placing ne directly before them, which will change affirmative sentences into negative ones. Here are some examples. Я знаю, я не знаю. Он говорит, он не говорит. Мы думали, мы не думали. Они увидят ее, они не увидят ее. I'm using more advanced concepts, such as the past and future, to fully show the idea of negation. Notice that there is no change to the verbs themselves. We only add ne to create the negation. Here, we have nouns and adjectives, and there are 2 ways to use no with them, нет and не. When using нет, this word indicates the absence of something and denies its existence. And let's not forget that with absence, nouns and adjectives will automatically be defined in the genitive, which will use the genitive grammar. Here are some examples with нет. У меня есть маленькая книга, у меня нет маленькой книги. У тебя есть старый кот, у тебя нет старого кота. Здесь есть хорошие рестораны, здесь нет хороших ресторанов. Again, when using нет with nouns and adjectives, they use the genitive in the negative sentences. Still, it's possible to use не with nouns and adjectives, like in the following sentences. Это был интересный фильм. Это был неинтересный фильм. Это хороший день. Это нехороший день. Это не птица, а самолет. Here we have pronouns, and with pronouns we simply put не before them. Это я, это не я. Она говорит со мной, она не говорит со мной. Это его дом, это не его дом. Мы в этом доме, мы не в этом доме. Они идут к своим домам, они не идут к своим домам. With pronouns, there could be many types of them, like personal object, possessive, demonstrative, and reflexive possessive pronouns, which I used in the following sentences. Here we have numbers and adverbs, and their negation is the same as with the previous concepts. Я тут первый раз. Я тут не первый раз. Их не двое, а трое. Это всегда хорошо. Это не всегда хорошо. This is how simple negation works in Russian. Let's continue with strong negation. Strong negation in Russian is mainly used for a negative emphasis that denies both options, and the word we have to use is ni. Ni indicates a strong negation, and in comparison to English, we can think of it as the word nor, but sometimes the meaning can change back to no or not. Still, in Russian, this is where we get to see a glimpse of double negatives and how negative words can repeat themselves, like in the following phrases. Я хочу кошку и собаку. Я не хочу ни кошку, ни собаку. я говорю с ним и с ней, я не говорю ни с ним, ни с ней. In the first sentence, the nouns are in the accusative because they act as direct object pronouns, being modified in the accusative. When the sentence is negative, we have three negations: ne once and ni twice. In English, we only have two negatives, but in Russian, there are three, because there's a negative emphasis on each object, which is what ni indicates. In the second sentence, we have instrumental pronouns that also have ni twice, and let's not forget that pronouns coming after a preposition receive the consonant n after. Furthermore, the strong negation ni is also used in phrases like not once and no matter, like он не позвонил ни разу and я буду с тобой, что бы ни случилось. At this point, we're getting very advanced with strong negation, and openly, there is no point in learning more advanced concepts with strong negation. So I'm going to stop here. Let's continue with complete negation. Complete negation, also known as negation of the whole sentence, is used as a negative reply that will completely negate a sentence, and actually, it's the easiest and most logical one to remember and use. In complete negation, the word нет is commonly used, but when replying, не can also be used. Ты дома? Нет, я не дома. Ты хочешь кушать? Нет, я не хочу кушать. Он посмотрел видео? Нет, он не посмотрел видео. Они вернутся? Нет, они не вернутся. I used a mix of every concept to fully show how complete negation works, like the perfective past and a reflexive verb in the last phrases. If you want to be very simple and quite lazy with complete negation, you can omit all the replies and just say нет, but it will be too impractical. So that's how complete negation works in Russian. Let's continue with double negatives and negation. Double negation in Russian is created when the simple negation не is combined with the strong negation ни. In Russian, negations combine and stay negative instead of canceling each other out like in English. Consider the following phrase: I do not see anything. In English, we only have one negative word because English doesn't allow double negatives. Russian, however, has double negatives, as I showed previously, so the sentence will be Я не вижу ничего. In this case, we're using the simple negative не along with the negative pronoun ничего, which is nothing, but it's modified in the genitive because we have denial and absence, so it's more equivalent to saying I do not see nothing. But again, English doesn't allow double negatives. At the beginning of the video, I mentioned that double negation has many pronouns that will be affected in the 6 Russian cases. Because of this advanced concept, I choose to not explain every single modification of every single negative pronoun because there's a ton of information that needs to be remembered. And honestly, it might cause more confusion than understanding. So I will not dive into the cases with double negation. Instead, I'll explain every double negative pronoun on its own and how it can be used simply and practically. With Russian double negation, I did say that the simple negation не is combined with the strong negation ни. However, it's important to understand that ни doesn't stay ни on its own. Because the ни emphasizes a strong negation, it will be applied to question words like кто, кого, что, чего, где, куда, когда, как, какой, and откуда. There could be a few more question words, but these are the most practical ones to know. In double negation, ни is placed at the beginning of these words, thus combining them into one word and making a pronoun, which is what I meant when I said that ни emphasizes a strong negation because it negates question words. For instance, где means where, and with ни, it's нигде, meaning nowhere, and the same principle applies to the rest of the words. This is double negation in Russian, which is ultimately used with the simple negation не by putting these pronouns after не, thus getting double negation, which involves using both negations in the same sentence. Grammatically speaking, the pronouns belong in the cases, which means that they will be modified under every case. But like I said, I choose to not explain their modifications because it's simply too much. As a side note, when learning double negatives, you might encounter sibling words that have one-letter differences and are similar to negative pronouns. The stress will change the pronunciation of the word, along with the meaning, which will lose the negation to become a new word. It's something I wanted to mention, but I will not explain it because it doesn't relate to double negation, even though spelling-wise it's similar, so watch out just in case. Anyhow, here are some simple and practical examples with double negation. Никто не пришел. Nobody arrived or came. In this case, we have the nominative nobody or no one, which is the simplest it could be. Still, do not forget that the case can change meanings and thus change the word, like in the phrase «Никого нет дома». There's nobody at home. In this case, we have «никого», which is nobody in the genitive, because of absence and denial. Also, we have the negation «нет» instead of «не», and the noun «дом» uses the genitive grammar «дома». «Ничто не беспокоит его». Nothing bothers him. We have the nominative «nothing» with «не», but it can change in the genitive, like «ничего не осталось». There is nothing left. Because of absence, we have the genitive «ничего». «Я не нашел его нигде». I did not find him or it anywhere. We have «не», the object pronoun «его», and the pronoun «нигде», which is nowhere. In English, we say anywhere, but in Russian we say nowhere. «Нигде». «Ты не уйдешь никуда». You will not go anywhere. We have «не» and the pronoun «никуда», which indicates direction, meaning to nowhere. «Я не был никогда в Лас-Вегасе». I was never in Las Vegas. We have «не» and «никогда», which translates to never, while also putting the noun Las Vegas in the prepositional grammar. «Я никак не могу найти свою книгу». I, by no means, cannot find my own book. We have «никак», which has multiple definitions, like by no means, at all, or completely. Also, we have «не» and the reflexive possessive pronoun «свою» in the accusative. «У меня нет никакой идеи». I do not have any idea. We have the genitive in this case with the negative pronoun «никакой», which modifies the noun. «Он не пришел ниоткуда». He did not arrive or come from anywhere. We have «не» and we also have «ниоткуда», which means from nowhere. Conclusively, this is how double negation works in Russian, and don't forget that some pronouns that I showed can be affected in the 6 Russian cases. Now, before ending the video, I want to quickly say that there are more types of negation in Russian, like negation in questions, the negative imperative, and negative commands. Even though there's more information to know, I choose to not cover these concepts because they're simple enough to understand. They're all built on the negations that I already explained, but if you wish to learn more, I have a link in the description to a separate site that can explain them more. Typically, you will not tend to use every negation that I showed, but it is important to understand the overall system. If anything, there are typical negative phrases that can be used in everyday conversations that have more functions. For instance, it's possible to use simple negation by saying no longer, yet, and nearly in the following phrases. Also, there is the informal nope, which in Russian is не-а. But again, these are supplemental concepts of negation in Russian. So overall, this is how negation fully works in Russian.